Get on your knees and apologize now. The Navy SEAL's voice cut through the crowd like a blade. His hand gripped Captain Richard Hayes' shoulder, forcing him down onto the asphalt. Hayes' face went white. His legs buckled. The man who had spent 7 days tormenting a female security guard was now kneeling before her, trembling. Around them, 200 soldiers stood at attention. Admirals, generals, Marines, Rangers, every hand raised in salute not to the officers but to the woman in the faded blue polo. The woman Hayes had called Gate Monkey. The woman he had threatened to destroy. The woman whose call sign had just silenced every voice on the base. Ghost. One word, and Captain Richard Hayes realized he had made the worst mistake of his life.
Chapter.
Before we begin this incredible true story, please subscribe to our channel and hit that notification bell so you never miss these powerful tales of courage and sacrifice. And tell us in the comments, what city are you watching from today? We love seeing how far these stories travel across the world. Now let's continue. I said move. Captain Richard Hayes gunned his engine. The SUV lurched forward 6 inches, stopping just short of Sarah Mitchell's knees. She didn't flinch. Sir, 60 seconds for verification. That's protocol. Protocol, Hayes laughed. I've briefed the Joint Chiefs. I've sat in the Situation Room with the President. And you're telling me about protocol? Yes, sir, I am. Hayes killed the engine. He stepped out of the SUV, slamming the door hard enough to echo across the checkpoint. 6'2", broad shoulders, jaw carved from arrogance. He walked toward her like a man who had never been told no. What's your name, Mitchell? Sarah Mitchell. Well, Sarah Mitchell. He stopped inches from her face. Let me explain how the world works. There are people who matter and people who don't. Guess which one you are? Sarah's voice stayed flat. The scanner will beep in 40 seconds, Captain. I don't give a damn about your scanner. Then you don't get on this base. Silence. The Marines at the next post stopped, breathing. A family in the car behind Hayes rolled up their windows. Hayes leaned closer. His breath was hot. His cologne was expensive. You just ended your career, he whispered. I promise you that. The scanner beeped. Green light. Sarah stepped aside. Welcome to Coronado, Captain. Have a productive day. Hayes stared at her for 3 long seconds. Then he smiled the kind of smile that promised pain. Mitchell, he said. I'll remember that name. He drove through without looking back. See ya. Jesus Christ, Mitch, what did you just do? Private Elena Vasquez ran up, her young face pale. That was Captain Hayes, Naval Intelligence. His godfather is a senator. I know who he is. He's going to destroy you. Sarah checked her scanner, reset the system, logged the interaction. He can try. Try Mitch. Men like him don't try. They do. They snap their fingers and people disappear. Elena grabbed her arm. Why didn't you just let him through? Sarah looked at her, really looked. Because the day I let someone skip protocol because of their rank is the day someone dies. Her voice dropped. I've seen it happen, Elena. I've seen what happens when people cut corners because a powerful man told them to. Seen it where you're a security guard. Sarah didn't answer. She turned back to the gate, her right hand trembling slightly at her side. Elena noticed. She always noticed. Mitch, who were you before this? Nobody important. That's not true. It's true enough.
Sorry.
Mess hall, 1800 hours. Word travel fast on a military base. By dinner, everyone knew about the security guard who had stared down Captain Hayes. Heard she made him wait a full minute. I heard she threatened him. I heard she's ex-CIAM. She's like 50 years old and works a gate. So perfect cover. The rumors multiplied like bacteria. By the time they reached Master Chief Antonio Vargas, Sarah Mitchell had become everything from a disgraced FBI agent to a witness protection case. Vargas listened, said nothing, ate his food, but his eyes were elsewhere. He was watching the woman in question, sitting alone at a corner table eating a sandwich and reading a paperback with no cover. Her movements were economical. Her posture was perfect. Her eyes never stopped scanning the room even while she read. Vargas had seen that behavior before, many times in many dangerous places. He stood up, grabbed his tray, and walked toward her table. Mind if I sit? Sarah looked up, assessed him in half a second. Free country, Master Chief. He sat. You're the talk of the base. Lucky me. Hayes is telling everyone you're mentally unstable, says you threatened him, says you should be fired and investigated. That's so. That's so. Vargas took a bite of his burger. Course, I watched the whole thing from the guard tower. You didn't threaten anyone. You just did your job. Sarah turned a page in her book. Then why are you telling me this? Because Hayes has friends, powerful friends. And you, Vargas studied her face. You don't seem to have any. I don't need friends. Everyone needs friends, Mitchell, especially when someone's coming for them. Sarah finally looked up. Her eyes met his. Vargas felt something shift in his chest. Those weren't the eyes of a security guard. Those weren't the eyes of a civilian. Those were the eyes of someone who had seen death up close and hadn't looked away. I appreciate the warning, Master Chief, but I've had people come for me before. She closed her book. I'm still here. They're not. She stood up and left. Vargas watched her go, his burger forgotten. Who the hell are you? He muttered. Oh, Gate 7, Day 2. Odd and purpose of visit. Delivery for Building 14. Open the back, please. The delivery driver sighed. Lady, I've been coming to this base for 6 years. Nobody checks the back. I do. It's just printer paper. Then you won't mind opening it. The driver cursed under his breath, but got out and unlocked the rear doors. Sarah climbed in, checking each box systematically. The driver watched, annoyed. Find anything, weapons, drugs, nuclear bombs? Sarah paused. She pulled out a small package wedged behind the paper boxes. No label, no return address. What's this? The driver's face changed. I don't know. Someone must have. Who gave you this package? I don't know what you're talking about. Sarah's voice hardened. You have 3 seconds to tell me the truth before I call the MPs and have this truck impounded. 1. Look, lady. 2. Okay. The driver held up his hands. Some guy paid me $200 to bring it on base. Said it was a surprise for his buddy. What guy? Describe him. I don't know. White dude, maybe 40 sunglasses. Sarah grabbed her radio. Control, this is Gate 7. I need bomb squad at the main checkpoint. Possible suspicious package. Lock down all incoming traffic now. The driver went pale. Bomb, wait, I didn't. Get on the ground, hands behind your head. I didn't know, I swear to God, I didn't know. On the ground. 45 minutes later, the package was cleared. Not a bomb, just contraband electronics being smuggled onto base. The driver was arrested. The checkpoint was reopened. But the story spread like fire. The security guard at Gate 7 had found something nobody else would have caught. Derek Okonkwo found Sarah in the break room filling out incident reports. You know what Hayes is saying about the package thing? Sarah didn't look up. I can guess. He's saying you planted it, says you're trying to make yourself look good after embarrassing him. Her pen stopped moving. Is anyone believing him? Some people, the ones who want to. Derek sat down across from her. But the MPs pulled the security footage. Shows the driver hiding the package before he got to the gate. You're clean. I know I'm clean. But Hayes doesn't care about clean. He cares about winning. Derek lowered his voice. Mitch, I've been doing this job for 20 years. I've seen contractors come and go. Most of them are just punching a clock, but you... He shook his head. You're different. You see things. You catch things. You operate like... Like what? Like someone who used to do this for real. Sarah finally looked up. Everyone used to do something, Derek. Not everyone used to do what you did. Silence stretched between them. I did 6 years in Army intelligence, Derek said quietly. I know how to read people, and I know how to read files. He paused. Yours is too clean, Mitch. 15 years of nothing, no employment history, no addresses, no records at all. He leaned forward. That's not a gap. That's a deletion. Sarah's right hand trembled. She pressed it flat against the table. What do you want, Derek? I want to know who's working my gate. I want to know if there's something coming that I should be ready for. His voice softened. And I want to know if you're okay. Sarah stared at him for a long moment. I'm nobody, she finally said. I used to be somebody, and now I'm nobody. That's all you need to know. That's not an answer. It's the only one I've got. VIP security briefing, day 3. The conference room was packed. Naval officers, Marine commanders, Army liaisons, Air Force coordinators. Operation Trident Unity was the biggest joint exercise of the year, and everyone wanted FaceTime with Admiral Morrison. Sarah stood in the back delivering a security update to Colonel Reeves. She was supposed to hand over the folder and leave. That was the job. That was the protocol. But then Captain Hayes stood up. Admiral Morrison, I need to raise a concern about our checkpoint security. The room quieted. Morrison, a silver-haired man with sharp eyes, nodded. Go ahead, Captain. There's a civilian contractor at Gate 7 who's been causing problems. Delaying VIP vehicles, harassing military personnel, overstepping her authority. Yesterday, she created a panic over a suspicious package that turned out to be nothing. It was contraband electronics, Colonel Reeves interrupted. Her instincts were correct. Her instincts caused a 45-minute lockdown during a critical logistics window. Hayes turned to face the room. This is exactly why civilians shouldn't have authority over military operations. They don't understand priorities. They don't understand chain of command. They don't understand what Captain... Everyone turned. Sarah had spoken. Her voice was quiet, but it carried. Hayes's face reddened. Excuse me, did I give you permission to speak? No, sir, but you were making claims about me in a room full of senior officers. I think I have a right to respond. You have a right to do your job and keep your mouth shut. My job is base security. If that means inconveniencing a captain who thinks his schedule is more important than safety protocols, then yes, I will do my job. The room went dead silent. Admiral Morrison leaned forward. What's your name, contractor? Sarah Mitchell, sir. Mitchell. Morrison studied her. You're the one who found the contraband yesterday. Yes, sir. And you're the one who made Captain Hayes wait for credential verification. Yes, sir. Morrison turned to Hayes. Richard, exactly how long did she make you wait? Hayes hesitated. That's not the point. How long? 60 seconds, sir. 60 seconds. Morrison's voice was ice. You're disrupting a security briefing because a contractor made you wait 60 seconds. Sir, it's about principle. No, Captain, it's about ego. Morrison stood. This meeting is over. Mitchell, stay. The room emptied fast. Hayes shot Sarah a look of pure hatred as he left. When they were alone, Morrison walked toward her. That took guts. Just doing my job, Admiral. No, you did more than that. You challenged a superior officer in front of his peers. Most contractors would have kept their heads down. Sarah met his eyes. Most contractors haven't seen what happens when people keep their heads down at the wrong moment, sir. Morrison studied her face. Where did you serve? I didn't say I served. You didn't have to. He paused. What branch? With respect, Admiral, I'd rather not discuss it. Why? Sarah's right hand trembled. She clasped it behind her back. Because that person doesn't exist anymore. Because I spent 3 years in hospitals and rehab facilities, being told I'd never walk without a cane, never use my right hand again, never live a normal life. Her voice stayed steady, but something cracked underneath. I proved them wrong, and I did it by letting go of who I used to be. Morrison was quiet for a long moment. Fair enough, he finally said. But Mitchell, whatever you were before, whatever you are running from, you've made an enemy in Richard Hayes. And men like him don't fight fair. I know, sir. Do you do better than you can imagine? Visitor Center, day 4, Maria Gonzalez was crying. Her son Mateo, 6 years old, was curled in a corner, hands clamped over his ears, rocking violently. The PA system had just announced a schedule change for tomorrow's demonstration, and the sudden noise had triggered a meltdown. Ma'am, you need to control your child. The receptionist's voice was sharp. This is a military facility. He has autism. He can't help it. Please. There's nothing I can do. Seating is assigned. My husband doesn't even know we're here. It's supposed to be a surprise. He's been deployed for 8 months. Mateo just wants to see his daddy. Please. Ma'am. His name is Mateo. He's 6 years old, and he's not a problem to be controlled. He's my son. Maria's voice broke. The tears came harder. That was when Sarah walked in. She didn't hesitate, didn't ask questions. She walked straight to Mateo's corner and lowered herself to the floor beside him. Not too close, not touching, just present. Hey, buddy. Mateo kept rocking, kept covering his ears. My name's Sarah. I don't like loud noises either. They hurt my head. No response, but the rocking slowed slightly. You know what I do when things get too loud? I count blue things. It sounds weird, but it works. Sarah pointed. There's a blue sign, that's 1. Your mom's bracelet, that's 2. Can you find 3? Silence, then a tiny whisper. Your shirt. That's right, my shirt is blue. Good job. What's 4? Slowly Mateo's hands lowered. His eyes scanned the room. That man's hat. Perfect. Where's 5? Bio. They counted to 12 before Mateo uncurled completely. He looked at Sarah with solemn eyes. Are you magic? No, buddy, just old. Maria rushed over, tears streaming. Thank you. Oh God, thank you. How did you know? I had a nephew. He was like Mateo. Sarah stood her knees protesting. Listen, tomorrow there's a medical tent near the VIP section. Blue stripe, quiet inside. You can watch everything through the windows. I'll make sure they know you're coming. Is that allowed? It will be. Maria grabbed Sarah's hand. I can't thank you enough. Then don't. Just enjoy seeing your husband. Sarah turned to go. Wait. Mateo's small voice stopped her. Are you a soldier? Sarah paused. I was, a long time ago. What did you do? I flew helicopters. I brought soldiers home. Like my daddy. Sarah's chest tightened. Yeah, buddy. Like your daddy. Mateo studied her with that intense focus only children possessed. Your hand is shaking. Sarah looked down. Her right hand was trembling badly. I got hurt, she said quietly. A few years ago. Does it hurt? Sometimes. My daddy got hurt too. He has a scar on his leg. Mateo paused. He says scars mean you were brave. Sarah felt something crack inside her. Something she'd kept sealed for 3 years. Your daddy's right, she managed. He's a smart man. He's the bravest man in the world. I bet he is. She left before the tears could fall. Eastern Perimeter, 2100 hours. Sarah walked the fence line alone. Night patrol. Most guards hated it. Sarah requested it. The darkness was calming. The silence was a mercy. She checked each section systematically. Tension wires, ground sensors, camera angles. The work was methodical, mechanical, meditative. She was at the southeast corner when footsteps approached behind her. You're a long way from the gate, Mitchell. She turned. Master Chief Vargas stood 10 feet away, his seal trident catching moonlight. Night patrol, she said. Alone. This section of the perimeter. I like the quiet. Vargas walked closer. I've been asking about you, making calls to some old friends. Sarah's heart rate increased. Her face stayed neutral. Find anything interesting? That's just it. I found nothing. Vargas stopped beside her. You don't exist, Mitchell. Not in any database my friends can access. No military records, no federal employment, no nothing. He paused. That takes work. That takes serious work. Maybe I'm just boring. Nobody's that boring. Vargas was quiet for a moment. I've been in the teams for 20 years. I've worked with every special operations unit in the military. Rangers, Green Berets, Delta, Marine Raiders, and the one group I respected most. He looked at her. The Night Stalkers. Sarah's tremor worsened. 160, Vargas continued. The pilots who fly into places no one else will go, who pull us out when everything goes to hell. We never see their faces, never learn their names. They're ghosts. Interesting. Very. Vargas reached into his pocket and pulled out a worn photograph. This was taken in Helmand Province 3 years ago. My team was pinned down. No way out. Command said extraction was impossible. Too hot. No pilot would risk it. He handed her the photo. Sarah looked at it. Her hands shook. It showed a Black Hawk helicopter rotors blurred descending into chaos. Muzzle flashes lit the darkness. Tracer rounds streaked the sky, and in the cockpit window barely visible was the silhouette of a pilot. That bird took an RPG on the way up, Vargas said. Pilot auto-rotated into a riverbed. Everyone survived, all 6 of my men, plus the crew. The helicopter was destroyed. The pilot, he paused. The pilot was pulled out with a shattered right arm. Medics said she'd never fly again. Sarah said nothing. Her call sign was Ghost. Vargas continued. Best pilot in SOAR, flew over 100 combat missions. Distinguished Flying Cross, Bronze Star, Purple Heart, and then she just vanished. Medical retirement. Record sealed. He took the photo back. I've been trying to find her for 3 years, to thank her, to tell her that 6 men got to see their kids grow up because of what she did. Sarah's voice was barely audible. Why are you telling me this? Because your right hand has a tremor. Because you move like someone who's been trained to survive. Because you look at helicopters like they're old friends. Vargas's voice dropped. And because yesterday, when that truck backfired near the motor pool, you dropped into a combat stance before anyone else even flinched. Silence stretched between them. I don't know who you used to be, Vargas said finally. I don't know why you're hiding, and I'm not going to blow your cover. He pulled out a business card. But if you're ever ready to talk, if you ever need anything, this is my personal number. He set the card on the fence post and walked away. Sarah stared at the card for a long time. Then she picked it up with her trembling right hand, the hand that had once held the cyclic of a Black Hawk, that had guided 15,000 pounds of helicopter through enemy fire that had brought warriors home from hell. She slipped it into her pocket, and somewhere in the darkness, a helicopter flew overhead, its rotors beating the air like a heartbeat. Sarah closed her eyes. She was back in the cockpit. Alarms screaming, fire warning lights flashing, 6 wounded SEALs in the back trusting her to get them home. The RPG had torn through the tail rotor. The bird was dying, and she was falling, falling, falling. Her eyes snapped open. She wasn't falling. She was standing on solid ground. The helicopter was gone. The fire was gone. The screaming was gone. But the memories remained. They always remained. 10. Parking lot. 2,300 hours. Sarah sat in her truck, hands on the wheel, going nowhere. Her right hand wouldn't stop shaking. She reached into the glove compartment and pulled out a worn photograph. 6 pilots in flight suits standing in front of a battered Black Hawk. The 160th Special Operations Aviation Regiment. The Night Stalkers. Her family. 3 of them were dead now. IED in Afghanistan. Training accident in Kentucky. Suicide in a VA parking lot. One was in a psychiatric ward fighting demons that had no name. One had disappeared into Alaska, off-grid, unreachable. And Sarah? Sarah was sitting in a parking lot pretending to be nobody while everything she'd buried clawed toward the surface. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. I meant what I said. Some of us remember. Vargas. She stared at the message. Some of us remember. Did she want to be remembered? Did she want anyone to know who she was, what she'd done, what it had cost her? She looked at her right hand, still trembling, always trembling. The doctors had said she'd never use it again. They'd said the nerve damage was permanent. They'd said she should accept her limitations and move on. She'd spent 2 years in physical therapy proving them wrong. 2 years of agony, frustration, small victories, and crushing defeats. 2 years of learning to use her hand again, one painful movement at a time. And when she was done, when she could finally hold a coffee cup without dropping it, button her shirt without help, write her name without crying, she hadn't gone back to flying. She couldn't, not because of the hand. The hand had healed enough. But her mind hadn't. Every time she heard rotors, she was back in that cockpit. Every time she smelled jet fuel, she felt the fire. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the ground rushing up to meet her. The Army called it PTSD. The VA called it service-connected disability. Sarah called it the price of admission. She'd paid it gladly. Would pay it again. Because those 6 SEALs had gone home to their families. Because the men she'd flown into combat year after year were still alive. Because she had done her job, done it well, done it until her body couldn't do it anymore. And now she checked IDs at a gate. Now she walked fence lines in the dark. Now she helped frightened children count blue things while their mothers cried with relief. It wasn't flying. It wasn't combat. It wasn't important. But it was service. Still service. Always service. Because that was who Sarah Mitchell was, who she had always been, who she would always be no matter what name she used or what uniform she wore. A servant, a protector, a ghost who refused to disappear. Her phone buzzed again. Different number this time. I know who you are, and I'm going to destroy you. Sarah read the message twice. Then she smiled. It wasn't a happy smile. It was the smile of a woman who had survived worse than Richard Hayes could imagine, who had faced death and won, who had nothing left to lose and everything left to give. Come and try, she whispered to the darkness. I've been waiting for someone like you. She started the truck and drove home. Tomorrow was day 5, 3 days until the demonstration, 3 days until everything changed. The morning sun had barely crested the horizon when Sarah pulled into the staff parking lot. She hadn't slept. Hayes's message had played on repeat in her mind all night, not because it frightened her, but because it reminded her of something she had almost forgotten. The feeling of being hunted, the feeling of having a target on her back. She had lived with that feeling for years in combat zones where every shadow could hide an enemy and every moment could be her last. She had thought those days were behind her. She had been wrong. Derek was waiting at the security office when she walked in. His face told her everything she needed to know before he spoke a single word. Hayes filed a formal complaint, he said. Came in at 0600, hand-delivered it to the base commander's office. Sarah poured herself a cup of coffee, her movements deliberately slow. What's he claiming? Insubordination, conduct unbecoming, failure to follow proper procedures. Derek paused. And he's requesting a full background investigation. Sarah's hand stopped halfway to her mouth. Background investigation? Says your file has irregularities. Says he has concerns about your fitness for duty at a high-security installation. Derek lowered his voice. Mitch, if they dig deep enough, they're going to find things. Or they're going to find the absence of things. Either way, it's going to raise questions you don't want to answer. Sarah set down her coffee. Her right hand was trembling again. When's the hearing? Tomorrow morning, 0900, base commander's conference room. Derek stepped closer. You need to get ahead of this. Call someone, lawyer, union rep, anyone who can help you navigate this. I don't have anyone to call. Then find someone, because Hayes isn't playing games. He wants you gone, and he's got the connections to make it happen. Sarah looked at him. Really looked. Why do you care, Derek? I'm just a contractor. People like me come and go. Derek's jaw tightened, because I spent 20 years watching good soldiers get destroyed by politicians in uniform. Because I've seen men like Hayes crush people who didn't deserve it just because they could. He paused. And because whatever you're hiding, I know you're one of the good ones. I've worked this job long enough to recognize the real thing. Sarah didn't respond. She couldn't. The words caught in her throat, blocked by years of silence and secrets and the weight of everything she couldn't say. She grabbed her gear and headed for Gate 7. The checkpoint was busier than usual. Operation Trident Unity was entering its final phase and vehicles were streaming onto base at twice the normal rate. Sarah processed them mechanically, her mind elsewhere. Scan, verify, wave through, scan, verify, wave through. The rhythm was almost meditative, a way to keep her hands busy while her thoughts raced. She was checking a supply truck's manifest when a familiar voice cut through the noise. Well, still here, I see. Captain Hayes stood beside a black sedan, arms crossed, smile sharp. I thought you might have resigned by now. Saved everyone the trouble. Sarah didn't look up from her clipboard. Is there something you need, Captain? Just checking on my favorite security guard. He leaned against the sedan. Enjoying your last few days on base. I'm enjoying doing my job, sir. Your job. Hayes laughed. Your job is whatever I decide it is. And right now I've decided your job is to be an example. Sarah finally met his eyes. An example of what? Of what happens when nobodies forget their place. The words hung in the air between them. Around them, the checkpoint had gone quiet. Marines, contractors, civilians, everyone was watching. You know what I've learned in my career, Mitchell? Hayes pushed off from the sedan and walked toward her. I've learned that the military is a machine, a beautiful, powerful machine, and machines need parts that work together, parts that know their function. He stopped inches from her face. You're a broken part, and broken parts get replaced. Sarah's voice was ice. Are you finished, Captain? Almost, he smiled. I just wanted you to know something. That hearing tomorrow, I've already won. I have friends on the review board, friends who owe me favors. He leaned closer. By this time tomorrow, you'll be escorted off this base, and no one will remember you existed. He turned and walked away without waiting for a response. Sarah watched him go. Her hands were shaking, not from fear, from something else, something older and darker and far more dangerous. Elena appeared at her elbow. Mitch, are you okay? Sarah blinked, refocused. I'm fine. You don't look fine. You look like you want to kill him. The thought crossed my mind. Elena grabbed her arm. Don't let him get to you. That's what he wants. He wants you to lose control, to give him something he can use against you. Sarah took a breath, then another. The shaking subsided. You're right. She forced her hands to relax. He's not worth it. But even as she said the words, she knew they weren't entirely true. Hayes wasn't worth her anger. But he was worth something else, something she hadn't felt in a long time. He was worth fighting. The afternoon brought a different kind of challenge. A convoy of unmarked vehicles arrived at Gate 7, windows tinted black and no plates visible. Sarah held up her hand. I need to see credentials for all passengers. The driver, a stone-faced man in civilian clothes, handed her a card. Sarah scanned it. The reader beeped twice. Access level classified. Sir, I need to verify this through the command post. No, you don't. Another man stepped out of the second vehicle. Tall, silver-haired, stars on his collar. Admiral Morrison. These men are with me, Mitchell. Let them through. Sarah hesitated. Protocol said she should verify. Protocol said she should call it in. But this was Admiral Morrison, the highest-ranking officer on base, personally vouching for the convoy. Yes, sir. Right away, sir. She waved the vehicles through. Morrison paused before getting back in his car. Mitchell, I heard about the hearing tomorrow. Word travels fast, sir. It does. Morrison studied her face. I also heard about what Hayes said to you at the checkpoint this morning. Half the base is talking about it. Sarah said nothing. I can't interfere with the review process, Morrison continued. But I want you to know something. Not everyone on that board is in Hayes' pocket, and not everyone believes his version of events. He paused. Do you have anyone speaking on your behalf? No, sir. That's a mistake. A hearing like this, you need someone in your corner. He glanced toward the gate. Think about it. He drove away, leaving Sarah alone with her thoughts. Someone in her corner. She almost laughed. She hadn't had someone in her corner since the crash, since the hospital, since the endless months of surgery and therapy and fighting just to use her own hand again. She had pushed everyone away, friends, family, fellow pilots. She had told herself it was easier that way, cleaner. No attachments meant no vulnerabilities. But now, standing at a gate in the California sun facing an enemy she couldn't outfight or outfly, she wondered if she had made a terrible mistake. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She answered. Mitchell. It's Vargas. The voice was gruff, familiar. We need to talk. Tonight. My place. I'll text you the address. He hung up before she could respond. Sarah stared at the phone. What did Vargas want? What did he know? And more importantly, what was he willing to do about it? The sun was setting when Sarah arrived at the address Vargas had sent. A small house on a quiet street. Nothing remarkable, nothing that would draw attention. She sat in her truck for a full minute, watching, assessing. Old habits, hard to break. Finally, she got out and walked to the front door. Vargas opened it before she could knock. You came. You asked. I wasn't sure you would. He stepped aside. Come in. The house was sparse, military neat. A few photos on the walls, mostly of men in combat gear, faces she didn't recognize. A folded flag and a shadow box above the fireplace. The remnants of a life spent in service. Beer, Vargas asked. I'm fine. You sure you look like you could use one? Sarah almost smiled. Maybe just one. He handed her a bottle and sat across from her. For a long moment, neither spoke. I made some more calls today, Vargas finally said. Dug a little deeper. Sarah's grip tightened on the bottle. And I found something interesting. He leaned forward. 3 years ago, there was an incident in Helmand province. A Black Hawk extraction that went wrong. RPG hit, pilot auto-rotated into a riverbed, Everyone survived. Sarah didn't move. I've heard this story. Have you heard the rest of it? Vargas's eyes locked onto hers. The pilot was medevaced to Landstuhl, then Walter Reed, spent 6 months in a coma, another year in rehabilitation, medical discharge with full honors. He paused. The Army sealed her records, classified everything about the mission, the crash, even her name. But I have friends who have friends, people who remember things. Sarah's right hand was shaking badly now. She set down the beer to hide it. What do you want, Vargas? I want to help you. Why? Well, because Ghost saved my life, saved 6 of my men, and because no one who did what she did should have to face a weasel like Hayes alone. The name hit Sarah like a physical blow. Ghost. She hadn't heard that call sign spoken aloud in 3 years, hadn't let herself think about it, hadn't let herself remember the person she used to be. I don't know what you think you know, she said carefully, but you're making assumptions. Am I? Vargas reached into his pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. This is a list of everyone Ghost extracted during her career. Every mission, every team, every operator she brought home. He unfolded it. The list was long. You know how many people owe their lives to that pilot? Over 200. 200 men and women who went home to their families because of her. Sarah stared at the paper, her vision blurred. I'm on that list, Vargas continued. So are half the guys in SEAL Team 4. So are Rangers from the 75th, Green Berets from 5th Group, Delta operators, some Marine Raiders. He set the paper on the table. Ghost is a legend, Mitchell, a real one. Not the kind they make up for movies, the kind that actually matters. Sarah couldn't speak. The walls she had built, the armor she had worn for 3 years, all of it was crumbling. The hearing tomorrow, Vargas said. I want to testify. No, this word came out sharp, desperate. Absolutely not. Why, because if you testify, you'll have to explain how you know me. You'll have to reveal things that are classified. You'll destroy your career. I don't care about my career. Well, I do. Sarah stood abruptly. I didn't spend 3 years hiding just to watch someone else get caught in the crossfire. Hiding from what? Vargas stood too. What are you so afraid of, Mitchell? It's not Hayes. A woman who flew into RPG fire isn't afraid of a paper-pushing captain. Sarah turned away. Her hands were shaking so badly now that she couldn't hide it. It's not Hayes I'm afraid of, she whispered. Then what? She closed her eyes. I'm afraid of being her again. Ghost, the pilot, the legend. Her voice cracked. I'm afraid that if I let that person back in, I won't survive losing her twice. The silence that followed was heavy, profound. Vargas walked toward her slowly. You never lost her, Mitchell. You just buried her, put her in a box and tried to forget she existed. He stopped beside her. But she's still there. I saw her at that gate when you stood up to Hayes. I saw her when you helped that kid in the visitor center. I saw her when you found that package in the delivery truck. His voice softened. Ghost isn't dead. She's just waiting for permission to come back. Sarah opened her eyes. Tears streamed down her face. I don't know if I can do this, she said. Yes, you do. Vargas put a hand on her shoulder. You've always known. You just needed someone to remind you. They stood like that for a long moment, 2 warriors bound by something deeper than words. Finally, Barry wiped her eyes. The hearing is at 0900. I'll be there. Vargas, I told you. And I told you I don't care about my career. He smiled. Besides, I'm not the only one who wants to testify. Sarah frowned. What do you mean? Remember that list, the 200 people Ghost saved? Vargas picked up his phone. I've been making calls all day. Turns out a lot of them are stationed at Coronado right now, and a lot of them are very, very interested in attending a certain hearing tomorrow morning. Sarah stared at him. You didn't. I did. His smile widened. Hayes wants a fight, he's about to get one. Sarah left Vargas's house with something she hadn't felt in years. Hope. Small and fragile, but real. She drove back to base, her mind racing with possibilities she had never allowed herself to consider. What if she didn't have to hide anymore? What if she could be Ghost again, even just for a moment? What if she could finally stop running? She was so lost in thought that she almost didn't notice the car following her. Almost. It had been behind her since she left Vargas's street. Black sedan, tinted windows, maintaining a perfect distance. Sarah's training kicked in automatically. She changed lanes. The sedan changed lanes. She took an unexpected turn. The sedan followed. Someone was tailing her. She pulled into a gas station and parked near the pumps, watching her mirrors. The sedan cruised past without stopping. But she caught a glimpse of the driver. Hayes. Her blood ran cold. He hadn't just filed a complaint. He wasn't just trying to get her fired. He was investigating her personally, following her, tracking her movements. What else was he doing? She thought about Vargas, about the calls he had been making, about the list of people who knew about Ghost. If Hayes was watching her, was he watching Vargas too? Was he listening to their conversations? Was he gathering evidence for something bigger than a simple hearing? Sarah gripped the steering wheel hard enough to hurt. She had thought Hayes was just an arrogant officer with a wounded ego. She had underestimated him. She wouldn't make that mistake again. Her phone rang, unknown number. She answered cautiously. Mitchell? Miss Mitchell, a woman's voice cool and professional. This is Commander Patricia Webb, JAG Corps. I'm calling about your hearing tomorrow. Sarah frowned. I don't have legal representation. I know, that's why I'm calling. Webb paused. I've been asked to represent you pro bono. Wonders by whom? I'm not at liberty to say, but I can tell you this, my client believes you're being railroaded and they want to make sure you have a fair chance. Sarah's mind raced. Who would hire a JAG lawyer on her behalf, Morrison Vargas? Someone else. Why should I trust you, she asked. You shouldn't. Not yet. Webb's voice softened slightly. But I've reviewed the complaint against you and it's full of holes. Hayes is overplaying his hand. With proper representation, we can tear his case apart. Sarah was quiet for a long moment. The hearing is at 0900. I know. I'll meet you at 0800 in the lobby of Building 14. Bring any documentation you have. She paused. And Miss Mitchell, get some sleep tonight. Tomorrow's going to be a long day. The line went dead. Sarah sat in the gas station parking lot staring at her phone. Things were moving fast now, faster than she had anticipated. Vargas was rallying support. A JAG lawyer had appeared out of nowhere. Hayes was following her personally. The game had changed. She had spent 3 years being invisible. 3 years keeping her head down, doing her job, avoiding attention. And in 1 week, all of that had been destroyed by a single arrogant captain who couldn't handle being told to wait 60 seconds. Part of her wanted to run, pack a bag, disappear, start over somewhere else. She had done it before. She could do it again. But another part of her, the part she had buried so deep she had almost forgotten it existed, wanted something different. That part wanted to fight. That part wanted to stand in that hearing room and look Hayes in the eye and show him exactly who he had chosen as an enemy. That part wanted to be Ghost again. Sarah started the engine and drove back to base. Tomorrow would decide everything. She arrived at her small apartment off base and locked the door behind her. Checked the windows. Checked the closets. Old habits. The place was empty, just as she had left it. Sparse. Functional. Nothing personal except for a single photograph on the nightstand. She picked it up, her right hand trembling. 6 pilots in flight suits standing in front of a Black Hawk. The 160th. Her family. I don't know if I can do this, she whispered to them. I don't know if I'm still the person you knew. The photograph didn't answer. She set it down and lay on the bed staring at the ceiling. Kandahar. Mosul. Helmand. The missions played through her mind like a movie she couldn't turn off. The screaming of wounded men, the thunder of rotors, the crack of gunfire, the moment the RPG hit the world spinning, falling fire everywhere, and then silence. 6 months of silence in a hospital bed. She had woken up broken, her arms shattered, her nerves dead, her career over. But she had survived. She had always survived. And tomorrow she would survive again. Sarah closed her eyes and let sleep take her. It was restless, filled with dreams of helicopters and fire and voices calling a name she had tried to forget. Ghost, Ghost, Ghost. She woke at 0500 covered in sweat. The day of the hearing had arrived. Sarah showered, dressed in her best clothes, a simple blazer and slacks, and studied herself in the mirror. The woman looking back at her was older now, worn, but her eyes still held the same fire they always had. One more mission, she told her reflection. Just one more. She grabbed her keys and headed for the door. Whatever happened today, there was no going back. Ghost was coming home. Building 14 was quiet at 0745. Too quiet. Sarah walked through the empty lobby, her footsteps echoing against the polished floors. She had arrived early, partly to meet Commander Webb, partly because she couldn't stand waiting in her apartment any longer. The silence there had been suffocating. She found a bench near the elevators and sat down. Her right hand was trembling again. She pressed it against her thigh and took a slow breath. In through the nose, out through the mouth. The same breathing technique they had taught her in survival school, back when she was young and fearless, and believed she was invincible. She didn't feel invincible now. "Miss Mitchell," Sarah looked up. A woman in navy dress uniform approached, briefcase in hand, silver oak leaves on her collar. Commander Patricia Webb, early 50s, sharp eyes, the kind of face that had seen courtrooms and won. Sarah stood. "Commander Webb, you're early, good." Webb shook her hand firmly. "I've been reviewing your file all night, or rather, the absence of your file." She paused. "You are quite the mystery, Miss Mitchell." "I prefer to keep a low profile." "Clearly," Webb gestured toward a small conference room off the lobby. "Let's talk before the hearing. I need to know what we're dealing with." They sat across from each other, the table between them covered in documents and folders. Webb opened a thick binder and spread several pages in front of Sarah. "Captain Hayes has submitted 17 pages of complaints against you. Insubordination, conduct unbecoming, failure to follow proper procedures, intimidation of a superior officer." She looked up. "He's also submitted a request for a full background investigation citing irregularities in your employment records." Sarah's jaw tightened. "What kind of irregularities?" "The kind where 15 years of your life don't exist." Webb leaned forward. "I'm not going to ask you what happened during those years. That's your business. But I need to know if there's anything in your past that Hayes could use against you." Sarah was quiet for a long moment. "My past is classified." "Classified by whom?" "The Department of Defense." Webb's eyebrows rose slightly. "That's unexpected." She studied Sarah's face. "Are you telling me you have a military background?" "I'm telling you my records are sealed for a reason. And if Hayes tries to unseal them, he's going to run into walls he can't climb over." "That may be true, but it won't help us today. Today, we're fighting on his turf with his rules." Webb closed the binder. "Here's what I know. Hayes has 3 allies on the 5-member review board: Colonel Peters, Commander Nash, and Lieutenant Commander Brooks. All of them owe him favors. All of them have already made up their minds. So I've already lost." "No, you have 2 votes that are still in play: Captain Rodriguez and Master Chief Simmons. Rodriguez is by the book. She'll vote based on evidence, not politics. And Simmons," Webb paused. "Simmons is a 30-year veteran who hates officers who abuse their authority. If we can show him that Hayes is acting out of personal vendetta rather than legitimate concern, he might swing our way. And if he doesn't, then we lose 3-2 and you're terminated effective immediately." Sarah absorbed this. "What's our strategy?" "We challenge every piece of evidence Hayes presents. We highlight inconsistencies in his testimony. We paint a picture of a vindictive officer who's targeting you because you bruised his ego." Webb pulled out another folder. "I've also subpoenaed the security footage from Gate 7. Every interaction you have had with Hayes is on camera. The timestamps, the audio, everything. If he lied in his complaint, we'll catch him. And if he didn't lie, if he was just selective with the truth," Webb smiled grimly, "then we do the same thing. We select our own truths." She stood. "The hearing starts in 45 minutes. I'm going to make some calls, see if I can get any last-minute support. You should take a walk. Clear your head." She headed for the door, then paused. "One more thing, Miss Mitchell. Whatever happens in that room, stay calm. Don't let Hayes provoke you. That's what he wants." "I know." Because the woman I've heard about, the one who stood up to him at the checkpoint, who called him out in front of Admiral Morrison, that woman has a temper. And temper is exactly what Hayes is counting on." She left without waiting for a response. Sarah sat alone in the conference room, staring at the documents spread across the table. 17 pages of complaints. A request for background investigation. 3 hostile votes on the board. The odds were stacked against her. Heavily. But she had faced worse odds before. She had flown into kill zones where survival was measured in seconds. She had brought helicopters home with engines on fire and controls shot to pieces. She had stared death in the face and refused to blink. This was just a hearing, just words and politics and bureaucracy. She could handle it, she hoped. The conference room on the third floor was larger than Sarah had expected. A long table dominated the center, with 5 chairs on one side for the review board and 2 chairs on the other for the accused and her counsel. A gallery of seats lined the back wall, already filling with observers. Sarah stopped in the doorway, surprised by the crowd. Derek was there, sitting in the front row, his face set in grim determination. Elena sat beside him, clutching a folder of what looked like character reference letters. Behind them, Sarah recognized faces from the security office, the checkpoint, the mess hall, people she had worked with, people she had barely spoken to. And there were others, military personnel in various uniforms, SEALs, Marines, even a few Army soldiers she didn't recognize. They filled the gallery to capacity, some standing against the walls. What the hell was going on? Commander Webb appeared at her elbow. It seems Master Chief Vargas has been busy. He did this? He made calls. Word spread. Webb guided her toward the defense table. Apparently you have more friends than you thought. Sarah scanned the crowd until she found Vargas standing in the back corner, his arms crossed. He caught her eye and gave her a single nod. She nodded back. Then she saw Hayes. He was already seated at the prosecution table, flanked by a JAG lieutenant she didn't recognize. His face was calm, confident. The face of a man who believed he had already won. But something flickered in his expression when he saw the crowd. Something that might have been uncertainty. Good. The review board filed in and took their seats. Colonel Peters, a stern-faced woman in her 50s, Commander Nash, bald and expressionless, Lieutenant Commander Brooks, young and nervous, Captain Rodriguez, dark-haired and sharp-eyed, and Master Chief Simmons, the oldest person in the room, with the weathered face of someone who had seen everything twice. Colonel Peters called the hearing to order. We are here to review the formal complaint filed by Captain Richard Hayes against civilian contractor Sarah Mitchell. Captain Hayes, you may present your case. Hayes stood buttoning his jacket with practiced ease. Thank you, Colonel. He walked to the center of the room, positioning himself so the entire board could see him. This case is simple. Miss Mitchell has demonstrated a pattern of insubordination, disrespect, and conduct that undermines the authority structure of this base. She has delayed VIP vehicles without cause. She has publicly contradicted superior officers. She has created unnecessary security incidents to draw attention to herself. He paused for effect. But most concerning is what we don't know about her. Her employment records show a 15-year gap with no explanation, no prior military service, no law enforcement background, nothing. She appeared out of nowhere, obtained a position at one of the most sensitive military installations in the country, and has been operating with suspicious autonomy ever since. Commander Webb stood. Objection. Captain Hayes is implying wrongdoing without evidence. A gap in employment records is not a crime. Peters nodded. Sustain. Captain Hayes, stick to the specific incidents outlined in your complaint. Hayes smiled thinly. Of course, Colonel. He turned to the board. Let me describe the first incident. On June 14th, I arrived at Gate 7 for credential verification. Miss Mitchell deliberately delayed my entry for over 60 seconds, despite my clearly identifying myself as the lead intelligence briefer for Admiral Morrison. When I attempted to expedite the process, she became confrontational and dismissive. That's a lie. Every head in the room turned toward the gallery. Derek Okonkwo was standing, his face flushed with anger. Sit down, sir, Peters warned. I was there, Colonel. I reviewed the security footage. Captain Hayes' credentials triggered a system verification flag. Miss Mitchell followed exact protocol. She wasn't confrontational. She was professional. Sir, you will sit down or you will be removed. Derek sat, but his point had been made. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Hayes' smile had frozen. The witness is not under oath and has no standing to interrupt these proceedings. Agreed, Peters said. Continue, Captain. Hayes spent the next 20 minutes describing each incident from his perspective. The briefing room confrontation, the perimeter inspection, the package discovery. Each time he painted Sarah as the aggressor, himself as the victim. And each time Commander Webb challenged him. Captain Hayes, you stated that Miss Mitchell threatened you during the package incident. Can you describe the exact words she used? Hayes hesitated. She implied that I should mind my own business. Implied or stated directly? Implied. So she didn't actually threaten you. Her tone was threatening. Her tone. Webb nodded slowly. Captain, are you aware that the security footage from that incident has audio? And that Miss Mitchell's exact words were, quote, I need to verify this package before it enters the base, unquote. Hayes's face reddened. The footage doesn't capture everything. It captures enough. Webb turned to the board. I move to submit the security footage as evidence. The board will see for themselves whether Miss Mitchell's conduct was threatening or professional. Peters nodded. Motion granted. The footage played on a screen at the front of the room. Every interaction, every word, Sarah standing calmly at the gate while Hayes grew increasingly aggressive. Sarah responding with measured professionalism while Hayes threatened her career. Sarah discovering the suspicious package and handling it by the book while Hayes insisted she was overreacting. By the time the footage ended, the atmosphere in the room had shifted. Captain Rodriguez was frowning at Hayes. Master Chief Simmons was shaking his head slowly. Even Colonel Peters, supposedly in Hayes's pocket, looked uncomfortable. Captain Hayes, Rodriguez said, in the footage you told Miss Mitchell, quote, I will have you removed from this base permanently. Is that accurate? I was frustrated. She was being obstinate. You also called her, quote, a gate monkey with a plastic badge. Is that accurate? Hayes's jaw tightened. I may have used colorful language. Colorful. Rodriguez's voice was ice. Captain, that language is demeaning, unprofessional, and arguably constitutes workplace harassment. Are you aware of that? I was making a point about chain of command. No, Captain. You were bullying a subordinate because she made you wait 60 seconds. Rodriguez turned to the board. I've seen enough. This complaint is clearly retaliatory. Peters held up a hand. Captain Rodriguez, we haven't finished hearing testimony. What more do we need to hear? The footage speaks for itself. There are still questions about Miss Mitchell's background, Hayes interjected. Questions that deserve answers. Who is she? Where did she come from? Why are her records sealed? Webb stood. Miss Mitchell's employment records are in order. She passed every background check required for her position. Captain Hayes's insinuations are baseless and irrelevant. Are they? Hayes smiled. Then why won't she answer simple questions about her past? The room went quiet. Peters turned to Sarah. Miss Mitchell, would you like to respond? Sarah stood slowly. Her right hand was trembling, but she clasped it behind her back where no one could see. My past is my own business, Colonel. I've done nothing wrong. I've followed every protocol. I've performed my duties to the best of my ability. She paused. If Captain Hayes has evidence of misconduct, let him present it. But speculation and insinuation are not evidence. Then you won't tell us about the 15-year gap in your records. Sarah met Peter's eyes. No, Colonel, I won't. The silence stretched. Then a voice spoke from the back of the room. I'll tell you. Everyone turned. Master Chief Antonio Vargas walked forward, his steel trident catching the light. He stopped in the center of the room facing the board. Master Chief, this is highly irregular, Peter said. I know, Colonel, and I don't care. Vargas looked at Sarah. I'm sorry. I know you wanted to keep this quiet, but you don't deserve what's happening here, and I'm not going to stand by and watch it. He turned back to the board. You want to know who Sarah Mitchell is? I'll tell you. But first I need to tell you a story. Hayes jumped to his feet. This is absurd. We're not here to listen to stories. Sit down, Captain, Simmons growled. I want to hear what the Master Chief has to say. Hayes sat his face pale. Vargas took a breath. 3 years ago, my team was in Helmand Province. We were pinned down, taking heavy fire, no way out. We had wounded men. We had dying men. Command said extraction was impossible. Too hot, too dangerous. No pilot would risk it. He paused, and then out of nowhere a Black Hawk appeared. No lights, no radio warning, just this bird dropping out of the sky like a ghost. The word hung in the air. The pilot put that helicopter down in a landing zone the size of a postage stamp under fire the whole time. We loaded our wounded, we loaded our dead, and that pilot got us out. Vargas's voice grew thick. We took an RPG hit on the way up. Tail rotor gone, engine on fire. We were falling. And that pilot, she auto-rotated us into a riverbed, controlled the crash, saved every single one of us. He pointed at Sarah. That pilot's call sign was Ghost. She flew over 100 combat missions with the 160th Special Operations Aviation Regiment. The Night Stalkers, she has the Distinguished Flying Cross, the Bronze Star with Valor, the Purple Heart. His voice cracked. And she nearly died saving my team. Spent 6 months in a coma, another year learning to use her arm again. Medical discharge. Record sealed. The room was absolutely silent. Her name, Vargas said, is Major Sarah Mitchell, United States Army, retired, and she's the bravest pilot I've ever known. Sarah couldn't breathe. The room erupted, officers shouting questions, board members conferring urgently. Hayes standing frozen, his face white as paper. Colonel Peters banged her gavel. Order, order. But no one was listening. Master Chief Simmons rose from his seat, his old face transformed by something like awe. He looked at Sarah with new eyes. "You're Ghost," he said. "You're really Ghost." Sarah couldn't speak, couldn't move. Everything she had hidden, everything she had buried, it was all flooding back. "I flew with the 101st in Iraq," Simmons continued. "We were extracted by Night Stalker pilots twice. Both times the call sign was Ghost." He shook his head slowly. "We never saw her face, never knew her name, but we knew the legend." More voices now, from the gallery, from the board. "Ghost pulled my brother out of Fallujah. Ghost flew air support for us in Mosul. Ghost saved my squad leader's life." The stories poured out, one after another. Soldiers and sailors and Marines, all of them connecting Sarah to missions they had survived, to brothers they had buried, to moments that had shaped their lives. Sarah stood in the center of it all, overwhelmed. This wasn't how it was supposed to happen. She had wanted to stay invisible, stay forgotten, stay safe, but the truth had found her anyway. Hayes's voice cut through the noise. "This is ridiculous. Even if any of this is true, it doesn't excuse her conduct on this base. It doesn't give her the right to—" "Shut up, Captain." Everyone froze. Admiral Morrison stood in the doorway, his face like thunder. "Admiral," Peter stammered, "we weren't expecting—" "I know you weren't." Morrison walked into the room, his presence commanding instant silence. "I've been listening outside for the past 10 minutes. Heard enough." He stopped in front of Hayes. "Captain, you filed a complaint against a decorated combat veteran because she made you wait 60 seconds at a security checkpoint. You called her a gate monkey. You threatened to destroy her career. And now you're standing here in front of officers who owe their lives to her, trying to pretend you're the victim." Hayes' mouth opened and closed. No words came out. Morrison turned to the board. "This hearing is over. The complaint is dismissed. Captain Hayes will report to my office at 1400 hours to discuss his conduct and his future in naval intelligence." Peters nodded quickly. "Yes, Admiral." Morrison turned to Sarah. For a long moment, they just looked at each other. "Major Mitchell," Morrison said, "I served in the Gulf during Operation Desert Storm. My helicopter was hit by enemy fire over Kuwait. We went down hard, lost 2 men. The rest of us were trapped in hostile territory for 18 hours. He paused. "The pilot who extracted us was a young warrant officer from the 160th. I never knew her name, but I never forgot her voice on the radio telling us to hold on, that she was coming." Sarah's eyes widened. "I've wondered about that pilot for 30 years, Morrison continued. Wondered if she made it. Wondered if she knew how many lives she saved." He extended his hand. "I think I finally have my answer." Sarah took his hand. Her grip was firm despite the tremor. "Thank you, Admiral." "No, Major, thank you." The hearing room had transformed. What had started as a court-martial had become something else entirely. A reunion, a reckoning, a homecoming. Sarah was surrounded by people she had never met but who knew her anyway, knew what she had done, knew what it had cost her. And for the first time in 3 years, she didn't feel invisible. She felt seen. The crowd was beginning to disperse when the alarm went off. A piercing wail that cut through the building, through the conversations, through everything. Emergency sirens, the kind that meant something had gone very, very wrong. Morrison grabbed his radio. "Morrison here, what's the situation?" The response crackled through. Admiral, we have a vehicle breach at the demonstration field. Catering truck lost control, heading directly for the VIP section. We have families in the impact zone. Sarah's blood went cold. The demonstration. The VIP section. Maria Gonzalez. Mateo. She was running before she even made the decision to move. Sarah's legs burned as she sprinted across the base. The alarm was still screaming, but she barely heard it. All she could hear was the pounding of her own heart and the voice in her head repeating the same words over and over. Maria, Mateo, medical tent, blue stripe. She had told them to watch from there. She had promised them they would be safe. The demonstration field came into view. Chaos everywhere. People running in every direction. Military personnel shouting orders. Families grabbing children scrambling for cover. And cutting through the middle of it all, a white catering truck moving too fast, weaving erratically, heading straight for the VIP section. Sarah didn't slow down, didn't hesitate. She calculated angles and trajectories the same way she had calculated landing zones in combat. The truck would miss the main bleachers. The driver was trying to steer, trying to brake, but something was wrong. Medical emergency, mechanical failure. It didn't matter. What mattered was where the truck was going to end up. The medical tent, the one with the blue stripe, the one where Maria and Mateo were watching through the window. Sarah pushed harder. Her lungs screamed. Her legs threatened to give out. But she had flown helicopters through enemy fire with a shattered arm. She had auto-rotated a dying aircraft into a riverbed while bleeding out. She had survived things that should have killed her 10 times over. She was not going to let a truck beat her. Everyone out of the way. Her voice was different now, not the quiet voice of a security guard. This was the voice of a combat pilot, the voice that had commanded crews and coordinated extractions and cut through chaos like a blade. People moved, instinctively, automatically. They didn't know who she was, but they knew that voice. That voice meant authority. That voice meant survival. Sarah reached the edge of the impact zone. The truck was 50 yards away. 40, 30. She could see the driver now slumped over the wheel, unconscious or dead. She could see the tent directly in the truck's path. She could see a small face in the window. Mateo. He was watching the truck come. Not moving, not running, just watching with those serious eyes the way children do when they don't understand that death is real. Sarah didn't think. She acted. She veered left, cutting across the truck's trajectory. 20 yards to the tent. 15. 10. She hit the entrance at full speed, grabbing the flap and tearing it aside. Maria was frozen, her arms wrapped around Mateo, her face white with terror. Move now. Sarah grabbed Maria's arm and pulled. Hard. Maria stumbled forward, dragging Mateo with her. They were moving, but not fast enough. The truck was 5 yards away. 4, 3. Sarah shoved them toward the concrete barrier behind the tent. Maria fell, pulling Mateo down with her. Sarah dove on top of them, covering their bodies with her own. The truck hit, metal screamed, canvas tore. The world became noise and impact and flying debris. Something struck Sarah's back, something heavy, something that drove the air from her lungs. She felt her right arm twist, felt old injuries flare with fresh agony. But she didn't let go. She held on to Maria and Mateo with everything she had, shielding them from the wreckage raining down, refusing to let them be taken from this world. And then suddenly it was over. Silence, or something like silence. The ringing in Sarah's ears drowned out everything else. She was alive. She was breathing. She was in pain, but she was alive. Mateo, her voice was hoarse. Mateo, are you okay? A small voice answered. I'm okay. Mommy's okay too. Sarah lifted her head. Maria was crying, clutching her son, her whole body shaking. But she was alive. They were both alive. Stay down, Sarah said. Don't move until help arrives. She tried to stand. Her legs buckled. The debris that had hit her back was a section of the truck's side panel, still partially pinning her to the ground. She pushed against it, feeling her muscles scream in protest. Ma'am, don't move. Hands grabbed her shoulders. Voices shouted for medics. Sarah looked up and saw faces she recognized. Elena, Derek, military personnel she had processed through Gate 7 100 times. I'm fine, she said. Check on the driver. Check on the other people. You're not fine, you're bleeding. Sarah looked down. Blood was soaking through her blazer, spreading from somewhere on her left side. A piece of metal, maybe. Glass. She couldn't tell. It's not that bad. Ma'am, please, let us help you. But Sarah was already looking past them, looking at the wreckage, looking at the chaos that was slowly being brought under control. Emergency responders flooding in, injured being triaged, families reuniting. And there, standing at the edge of it all, frozen in place, was Captain Richard Hayes. He was staring at her. His face was pale. His mouth hung open. He looked like a man who had just watched everything he believed about the world collapse around him. Sarah met his eyes. For one long moment, they just looked at each other. The arrogant captain and the gate guard he had tried to destroy, the bully and the legend, the coward and the hero. Hayes looked away first. He turned and walked into the crowd, disappearing among the uniforms and the chaos. Running away just like Sarah had always known he would. She would have laughed if it didn't hurt so much. The medics arrived and started working on her. Sarah let them, too exhausted to resist. They cut away her blazer, exposed the wound on her side. A piece of aluminum from the tent frame embedded in her flesh. Not deep enough to be dangerous, but deep enough to require stitches. You're lucky, the medic said. An inch to the left, and this would have hit your kidney. I don't believe in luck, Sarah said. Then what do you call this? Tuesday. The medic laughed despite himself. You military used to be. What branch? Army? Aviation? The medic paused his work and looked at her. Really looked. You flew helicopters. Yeah. My brother's a pilot, 101st Airborne. He went back to work gentler now. He says the Night Stalker pilots are the best in the world. Says they fly into places no one else will go. Sarah didn't respond. He was extracted by one of them once. Kandahar 2019. Said the pilot was a woman. Said she flew through an ambush that should have killed everyone. The medic shook his head. He still talks about it, still tries to find out who she was. Sarah closed her eyes. What's your brother's name? She asked quietly. Sergeant First Class Michael Torres, 101st Airborne 3rd Battalion. Sarah remembered a night extraction under heavy fire. 6 wounded soldiers, an RPG that missed the cockpit by inches. She had flown for 45 minutes with a damaged engine, refusing to set down until she reached a safe zone. Tell your brother he's welcome, she said. The medic stopped working. Wait, are you saying I'm saying your brother made it home. That's what matters. The medic stared at her for a long moment. His eyes were wet. Thank you, he whispered. Thank you for bringing him back. Sarah nodded but said nothing more. The crowd was growing. Word was spreading. People were pointing at her, whispering, taking photos with their phones. Sarah hated it, hated the attention, hated being seen. But she couldn't hide anymore. Vargas had made sure of that. She looked for him in the crowd and found him standing 20 feet away, watching her with an expression she couldn't read. Pride, maybe? Or relief? Or something deeper? He walked toward her, pushing through the gathering onlookers. You okay? He asked. I'll live. That was stupid what you did, running into the path of a truck. Probably. Could have gotten yourself killed. Probably. Vargas shook his head. You haven't changed at all, have you? Still the same crazy pilot who flew into fire because someone needed saving. I'm not a pilot anymore. No, you're something else now. Vargas knelt beside her, his voice dropping. You're proof that the uniform doesn't make the soldier. That courage doesn't retire. That once a warrior, always a warrior. Sarah felt tears prick her eyes. She blinked them back. I didn't want any of this, she said. I just wanted to be left alone. I know, but that was never going to happen. People like you don't get to disappear. You're too important, too needed. He put a hand on her shoulder. The world needs to know that heroes exist, that sacrifice means something, that the people who protect us aren't just names on a wall. I'm not a hero, Vargas. Tell that to the woman and child you just saved. Tell that to the 200 people on my list. Tell that to every soldier who came home because you flew into hell to get them. His grip tightened. You're a hero, Mitchell, whether you like it or not. Maria appeared, pushing through the crowd with Mateo in her arms. Her face was tear-streaked, her clothes covered in dust, but she was alive. They were both alive. I don't know how to thank you, Maria said, her voice breaking. You saved us. You saved my son. I did what anyone would do. No, you did what no one else could do. Maria knelt beside her, clutching Mateo close. Mateo wants to say something. The little boy looked at Sarah with those serious eyes. You're not just a soldier, he said. You're a superhero, like in the movies. Sarah felt her heart crack open. I'm not a superhero, buddy. I'm just someone who... My daddy says superheroes are real. They just don't wear capes. Mateo reached out and touched Sarah's wounded side very gently. Does it hurt? A little? My daddy says pain means you were brave. Sarah couldn't speak. The tears she had been fighting finally spilled over. Your daddy's right, she managed. He's a very smart man. He's going to be here soon. Mommy says it's supposed to be a surprise, but I think you should know. Mateo leaned closer. Can you keep a secret? I'm very good at keeping secrets. My daddy's going to cry when he sees us. He cries when he's happy. Don't tell anyone. Sarah laughed. It hurt, but she laughed anyway. I won't tell anyone, she promised. The crowd parted suddenly. Admiral Morrison walked through, flanked by his aides. He stopped in front of Sarah, his face grave. Major Mitchell, I've just received a full report on what happened here. Sarah tried to stand. Morrison held up a hand. Stay down. That's an order. He knelt beside her, ignoring the protocol that said admirals didn't kneel. The driver of the truck had a heart attack. Lost control. He's being treated now, but if not for your actions, that vehicle would have hit the medical tent at full speed. The casualties would have been... He paused. Unthinkable. I just did what needed to be done, Admiral. No, Major. You did what only you could do. What only someone with your training, your instincts, your courage could do. He looked at Maria and Mateo. This woman and her son, you're alive because of you. The families in that section are alive because of you. He paused. I've already spoken to the base commander. The complaint against you has been officially expunged. Captain Hayes is facing a formal investigation for conduct unbecoming. Sarah closed her eyes. Thank you, Admiral. Don't thank me. Thank yourself. Morrison stood. When you're recovered, I'd like to speak with you about a position on my staff. We need people like you, people who understand what real service means. Before Sarah could respond, a commotion at the edge of the crowd drew everyone's attention. A man in navy whites was pushing through, his face frantic. Petty Officer Second Class David Gonzalez, Maria's husband, Mateo's father. Mateo. Maria turned, her face transformed. David. She ran toward him, Mateo in her arms. They collided in the middle of the crowd, the three of them wrapping around each other like they would never let go. Oh my God, you're here. You're really here. David was sobbing, kissing his wife, holding his son. They told me there was an accident. They told me the medical tent was hit. I thought, we're okay because of her. Maria pointed at Sarah. David looked up. His eyes found Sarah still sitting on the ground, surrounded by medics. He released his family and walked toward her. Sarah saw him coming and tried to wave him off. Your family needs you. Go be with them. But David kept walking. He stopped 3 feet away and looked down at her with an expression she couldn't read. You saved them, he said. His voice was thick. You saved my wife and my son. I did my job. No, you did more than that. He dropped to his knees, putting himself at her level. I've been deployed for 8 months. 8 months of wondering if they were safe. 8 months of praying I'd see them again. Tears streamed down his face. And today I almost lost them. I almost lost everything that matters. But you didn't. Because of you. David reached out and took her hand. I don't know who you are. I don't know your story. But I know this. You gave me back my family. And I will never, ever forget that. Sarah squeezed his hand. Go be with them. That's the only thanks I need. David nodded. He stood, wiped his eyes, and walked back to Maria and Mateo. Sarah watched them embrace again, the three of them holding on to each other like survivors of a shipwreck. And for the first time in 3 years, she felt something she had almost forgotten. Peace, not the peace of silence or solitude, not the peace of hiding from the world, but the peace that came from knowing you had done something that mattered, that your pain had purpose, that your sacrifice had meaning. She had saved them. She had saved 200 others before them. She had given everything she had, and it had been enough. It had finally been enough. The medics finished their work and helped her to her feet. The wound in her side throbbed, but the pain was distant manageable. She had felt worse, much worse. "You should go to the hospital," the medic said. "Get that properly checked out." Later. "Ma'am, I really think—" Later. The medic sighed but didn't argue. He knew that look. The look of someone who wasn't going anywhere until they were ready. Sarah walked slowly through the crowd, accepting nods and murmurs of thanks from strangers. She didn't want the attention, but she didn't run from it either. She was done running. Elena found her near the edge of the demonstration field. "Mitch! Oh my God, Mitch!" Elena threw her arms around her, then pulled back quickly. Sorry your side." "It's fine, I'm fine." "You're not fine, you almost died." "I've almost died before, it's overrated." Elena laughed through her tears. "How are you joking right now? How are you always so calm?" "Practice," Elena shook her head. "I heard what Master Chief Vargas said in the hearing, about who you really are, about what you did." She paused. "Why didn't you ever tell anyone?" Sarah was quiet for a moment. "Because I didn't want to be that person anymore. I wanted to be someone new, someone without a past, someone who could just exist." "But you can't, can you? You can't just exist. It's not in your nature." "Apparently not." They stood together in silence, watching the emergency crews clean up the wreckage. "What happens now?" Elena asked. "I don't know." "Will you stay on the base, I mean?" Sarah looked at the gate in the distance. Gate 7, her post for 2 years, the place where she had tried to disappear. "I don't know," she said again. "Maybe, maybe not. For what it's worth, I hope you stay." Elena touched her arm. "You're the best thing that ever happened to this checkpoint, even if nobody knew why." Sarah almost smiled. "Thanks, Elena. And Mitch, whatever you decide, whatever you do next, I'm glad I got to know you, even if it was just the version of you that worked the gate." Elena walked away, leaving Sarah alone with her thoughts. The sun was beginning to set over Coronado, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold. It was beautiful, Sarah realized. She had worked here for 2 years and never really noticed. She had been too busy hiding, too busy surviving, too busy pretending to be nobody. But she wasn't nobody. She never had been. She was Ghost. She was Major Sarah Mitchell. She was a pilot, a warrior, a survivor. And maybe, just maybe, she was ready to remember that. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Heard what happened. Knew you couldn't stay invisible forever. Welcome back, Ghost. Colonel Harrison, 160th SOAR Retire." Sarah stared at the message. Harrison, her old commander. The man who had pinned her distinguished flying cross on her chest. The man who had cried at her medical discharge ceremony. He was still watching, still remembering. She typed a reply. "Not sure I'm back. Not sure I ever left." The response came immediately. "Once a Night Stalker, always a Night Stalker." NSDQ. Night Stalkers don't quit. Their motto. Her motto. The words she had lived by for 15 years. Sarah put the phone away and looked at the sky. The helicopter was up there somewhere. She could hear its rotors in the distance, probably a medevac bird heading for the hospital. The sound used to trigger her. Used to send her spiraling into flashbacks, in panic. But not today. Today, it sounded like home. "Major Mitchell." She turned. A group of SEALs approached, led by Master Chief Vargas. Behind them, more military personnel. Marines, Rangers, soldiers from units she didn't recognize. They stopped in front of her and formed a line. Vargas stepped forward. "We've been talking," he said, "all of us. Everyone who knew you, everyone who flew with you, everyone whose life you saved." He paused. "We wanted to do something. To show you what you mean to us." Sarah shook her head. "That's not necessary." "Yes, it is." Vargas's voice was firm. "You spent 3 years thinking you were nobody. You spent 3 years hiding from the people who love you. Well, we're done letting you hide." He stepped back and took his place at the end of the line. Sarah looked at them. 20 people, 30, more joining every second. SEALs, Marines, Army, Navy, Air Force, all of them standing in a row facing her. And then, as if on some unspoken signal, they moved. 20 hands, 30, 40, rising as one to their brows. A salute. not the casual salute of daily routine. This was something else, something sacred. The salute warriors give to legends. The salute the living give to those who should have died but didn't. The salute that says more than words ever could. Sarah stood frozen, her heart pounding, her eyes burning. "You don't have to. Shut up and take it, Major." Vargas's voice cracked. "You've earned this. 100 times over you've earned this." More people joined. 50, 60. The entire crowd, military and civilian alike, raising their hands or standing at attention. Even the families with children. Even the medics who had treated her wound. Sarah Mitchell, the invisible woman, the ghost who had tried so hard to disappear, stood at the center of a sea of respect. And finally, she let herself feel it. The pride, the pain, the love, all of it rushing through her like a tide she couldn't stop. She raised her own hand to her brow, returning the salute with every ounce of dignity she possessed. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you all." The salutes held for a long moment, then slowly they lowered, but the connection remained. The bond between warriors. The unbreakable thread that linked everyone who had served everyone, who had sacrificed everyone, who understood what it meant to put others before yourself. Sarah was part of that bond. She always had been. She had just forgotten. Admiral Morrison approached, his face solemn. "Major Mitchell, in light of recent events, I'm exercising my authority as base commander to offer you an immediate reinstatement to active duty status pending medical clearance. The Army needs pilots like you. The country needs people like you." He paused. "What do you say?" Sarah looked at him, looked at the crowd, looked at the sky where the helicopter had disappeared. "Can I think about it?" Morrison smiled. "Take all the time you need." He walked away, leaving her alone with the biggest decision of her life. Go back to being Ghost, return to the cockpit, to the missions, to the life she had thought was over. Or stay here at Gate 7, checking IDs and walking perimeters invisible and safe. She didn't have an answer. Not yet. But for the first time in 3 years, she was asking the question. And that, she realized, was a kind of victory all its own. The sun set over Coronado and Sarah Mitchell stood watching it disappear below the horizon. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new decisions, new chances to fail or succeed. But tonight she was just a woman who had survived, a woman who had saved lives, a woman who had been seen. And that was enough. For now, that was more than enough. The night after the accident was the longest of Sarah's life. She lay in the hospital bed staring at the ceiling, unable to sleep. The wound in her side had been stitched and bandaged. The doctors had told her she was lucky. An inch to the left, and she would have bled out on the demonstration field. Lucky, they said. She didn't feel lucky. She felt raw, exposed, like someone had peeled back her skin and shown the whole world what was underneath. The door opened softly. Sarah turned her head, expecting a nurse. It was Maria Gonzalez. "I'm sorry," Maria whispered. "I know it's late. I couldn't sleep without seeing you." Sarah pushed herself up, wincing at the pull of her stitches. "You should be with your husband, with Mateo. They're asleep. David finally crashed about an hour ago. He's been holding Mateo since we got back to the hotel. Won't let him go." Maria's voice cracked. "He keeps saying he almost lost them. Keeps saying it over and over. He didn't lose them. Because of you." Maria walked to the bedside and sat in the plastic chair. Her eyes were red from crying. "I can't stop thinking about what would have happened if you hadn't been there. If you hadn't run toward the truck instead of away from it. Someone else would have done the same thing." "No, they wouldn't have." Maria shook her head. "I saw the other people. They ran. They grabbed their own kids and ran. But you ran toward the danger. You didn't even hesitate." Sarah was quiet for a moment. "It's what I was trained to do." "Trained by who? The Army?" Maria leaned forward. "I heard what they said about you at the hearing, about Ghost, about the missions you flew." She paused. "Is it true, all of it?" "Most of it." "Then why were you working as a security guard? Why were you hiding?" Sarah closed her eyes. The question she had been asking herself for 3 years. The question she still didn't have an answer to. "Because I was tired," she finally said. "Tired of the missions, tired of the pressure, tired of watching people die and wondering if I could have saved them." She opened her eyes. "When I crashed, When I lost my arm, I thought it was over. I thought I could finally stop, finally rest. But you couldn't. No, I couldn't. Sarah looked at her bandaged hand. Because even when I wasn't flying, I was still seeing threats, still calculating risks, still watching everyone around me for signs of danger. She laughed softly. Turns out you can take the pilot out of the cockpit, but you can't take the cockpit out of the pilot. Maria reached out and took her hand. What are you going to do now? I don't know. Admiral Morrison offered to reinstate me. Get me back in the air. Is that what you want? Sarah thought about it, really thought about it for the first time. I don't know what I want, she admitted. For 3 years, I wanted to be invisible. I wanted to be nobody. And now, she trailed off, now you're famous. Everyone on the base knows your name. Everyone knows what you did. Yeah, and I hate it. Maria squeezed her hand. Can I tell you something? Something my grandmother used to say. Sure. She said that heroes don't choose to be heroes. They just do what needs to be done, and the world decides what to call them. Maria smiled through her tears. You didn't choose this, Sarah, but you are a hero, whether you like it or not. Sarah didn't respond. She couldn't. The words had hit something deep inside her, something she had been protecting for years. Get some sleep, Maria said, standing. Tomorrow is going to be a big day. Why, what happens tomorrow? Maria smiled. You'll see. She left without explaining. Sarah lay back against the pillows, her mind racing. What was happening tomorrow? What else could possibly happen after everything that had already occurred? She didn't sleep. She just waited for the sun. Morning came slowly. The hospital released her at 0800 with a bottle of painkillers and instructions to rest. Sarah ignored both. She had a feeling she was going to need her wits about her. Derek was waiting outside with his truck. How'd you know I was being discharged? Sarah asked. Word travels fast. Also, the nurses called me. Apparently, you listed me as your emergency contact. I did. 3 years ago when you started the job. Don't you remember? Sarah didn't remember. She had been so focused on disappearing that she hadn't thought about what would happen if she got hurt. Hadn't thought about who would come for her. But Derek had come, just like he always had. Thanks, she said, climbing into the truck. Don't thank me yet. You have got a busy day ahead. So I've heard. What's going on? Derek pulled out of the parking lot and headed toward the base. You'll see. Everyone keeps saying that. It's starting to annoy me. Derek grinned. Good. You're too calm all the time. A little annoyance is healthy. They drove in silence for a few minutes. Sarah watched the familiar streets pass by the same route she had taken every day for 2 years. Everything looked different now. Brighter, sharper, like she was seeing it for the first time. Derek. Yeah. Why did you believe in me from the beginning, before you knew who I was? Derek was quiet for a moment. Because I've been doing this job a long time, Mitch. I've seen hundreds of contractors come through. Some of them were good, some of them were terrible. Most of them were just average. He glanced at her. But you were different. You cared about the JJet, about the people, about doing things right. He paused. I didn't know you were a war hero. I didn't know about Ghost or the missions or any of that. I just knew you were someone worth trusting. Sarah felt her throat tighten. That means a lot. It should. I don't trust easily. Derek pulled through the main gate, waving at the guards. We're here. Sarah looked out the window and felt her heart stop. The parade ground was packed. Hundreds of people in formation. Navy, Marines, Army, Air Force. All of them standing at attention, facing a small platform at the center. What is this, your welcome home party? I didn't ask for this. No, but you deserve it. Derek parked the truck and turned to face her. Listen to me, Mitch. For 3 years, you've been hiding from the world, from yourself, from everyone who cares about you. And I get it. I understand why. But that ends today. He put a hand on her shoulder. Today you stop running. Today you let people see you, the real you. Not the gate guard, not the contractor, the pilot, the warrior, the hero. I'm not a hero. You are to them. Derek nodded toward the crowd. Every person out there has a story about you, about someone you saved, someone you brought home, someone who's alive because of what you did. His voice softened. Let them thank you, Mitch. Let them honor you. You've earned it. Sarah stared at the crowd, her heart pounding. She wanted to run. Every instinct she had screamed at her to get out of the truck, disappear into the base, find some quiet corner where no one would look for her. But she didn't. She opened the door and stepped out. The crowd parted as she walked toward the platform. Faces she recognized, faces she didn't. All of them watching her with an expression she had never seen directed at her before. Reverence. Admiral Morrison stood at the platform waiting. Beside him, Master Chief Vargas, Colonel Reeves, Commander Webb, and dozens of other officers, all of them in their dress uniforms. Sarah climbed the steps to the platform, her legs unsteady. The wound in her side throbbed with every movement. Morrison stepped forward. Major Sarah Mitchell, United States Army, retired. His voice carried across the parade ground. 3 years ago, you flew your last mission, a night extension in Helmand Province that should have been impossible. You saved 6 Navy SEALs that night. You saved the helicopter crew, and you nearly gave your life doing it. The crowd was absolutely silent. When you woke up from your coma, you faced a choice. You could have accepted a desk job. You could have stayed in the Army, collected your pension, lived a comfortable life. Instead, you chose to disappear, to become invisible, to serve in silence the same way you had always served. Morrison paused, his voice thickening. For 2 years, you worked at Gate 7. You checked IDs. You walked perimeters. You found threats that no one else would have caught. You helped families. You protected this base. All without recognition. All without asking for anything in return. He turned to face Sarah directly. Yesterday, you proved that courage doesn't retire. That heroism isn't something you put on with a uniform and take off when you leave. When that truck came toward the medical tent, you didn't hesitate. You ran toward the danger. You saved a woman and her child. You put yourself in harm's way again because that's who you are. That's who you've always been. Morrison reached into his pocket and pulled out a small box. Major Mitchell, on behalf of the United States Navy, the United States Marine Corps, the United States Army, and the United States Air Force, it is my honor to present you with the Navy and Marine Corps Medal for Heroism, not involving combat with an enemy. He opened the box. Inside, a medal gleamed on a bed of velvet. This medal is awarded to service members who distinguish themselves by heroism, not involving actual conflict with an enemy. By your actions yesterday, you saved the lives of Maria Gonzalez and her son Mateo. You demonstrated the highest traditions of military service, even though you were no longer in uniform. He pinned the medal to her chest. The crowd erupted in applause. Sarah stood frozen, overwhelmed. The medal felt heavy against her chest, heavier than any medal she had ever received. Morrison leaned close to her ear. There's more. More. He stepped aside and Vargas took his place. Major Mitchell. Vargas's voice was rough with emotion. You've spent 3 years thinking no one remembered you, that no one knew what you sacrificed, that no one cared. He paused. You were wrong. He raised his hand and a line of people stepped forward from the crowd. Sarah recognized the first one, Sergeant First Class Michael Torres, the medic's brother, the soldier she had extracted from Kandahar. You saved my life, Major, Torres said. You flew through an ambush that killed 2 other helicopters. You got me home. I named my daughter Sarah because of you. He stepped aside and another person took his place. A woman in army dress uniform, Captain Jennifer Walsh. You pulled my team out of Mosul in 2018. We were surrounded, no way out. You came for us anyway. 3 of us are still alive because of you. Another person, another story. You extracted my platoon from Fallujah. You flew cover for us in Kandahar. You brought my brother home when everyone said it was impossible. You saved my husband's life. He died 2 years later from cancer, but he got to see his grandchildren because of you. One by one they came. 20 people, 30, 40. Each one with a story. Each one with tears in their eyes. Each one reaching out to touch her hand, her shoulder, her face. Sarah couldn't breathe. The weight of their gratitude was crushing her, the weight of everything she had tried to forget. She had told herself that none of it mattered, that the missions were just missions, that the people she had saved were just names in a file. But they weren't. They were real. They were standing in front of her. They were thanking her for their lives. "I can't," she whispered. "I can't do this." Vargas caught her as her knees buckled. "Yes, you can." His voice was fierce. "You can because you have to. Because these people need you to see what you did, what you meant to them." He held her upright. "Look at them, Mitchell. Look at what you saved." Sarah looked, and for the first time she let herself see, not the missions, not the danger, not the fear and the pain and the endless nights of wondering if she had done enough. She saw the moms, the families, the children who existed because their parents came home, the futures that unfolded because she had flown into hell and brought people back. She saw what she had done, and it broke her. The tears came, not quiet tears, not controlled tears, but the deep, wrenching sobs of someone who had been holding on for too long and finally let go. She cried for the friends she had lost, for the missions that had gone wrong, for the people she couldn't save, for the 3 years she had spent punishing herself for surviving. She cried until there was nothing left. And when she finally stopped, she found herself surrounded by warriors. SEALs, Marines, Rangers, Green Berets, all of them standing with her, all of them refusing to let her fall. "Welcome back, Ghost," Vargas said softly. "We missed you." The ceremony continued for another hour. More medals, more speeches, more faces from her past appearing to thank her for their present. But the moment Sarah would remember forever came at the end. A man in civilian clothes pushed through the crowd, older, gray-haired, walking with a cane. Sarah didn't recognize him at first. Then he spoke. "You probably don't remember me." His voice triggered something. A memory, a mission, a voice on the radio screaming for help. "Kuwait," she whispered. "1991, Desert Storm." The man nodded, his eyes filling with tears. "You were a warrant officer. First combat mission. We went down behind the enemy lines. 2 of my men died in the crash. The rest of us were trapped, surrounded. No hope." Sarah remembered. God, she remembered. "You came for us, in the middle of the night, through enemy territory. You put your bird down in a parking lot the size of a basketball court, took fire the whole time and got us out." The man's voice cracked. "I never knew your name. Never saw your face. I've been looking for you for 30 years. Who are you?" The man straightened, and suddenly Sarah could see the officer he had been. The young lieutenant, scared and bleeding, praying for rescue. Lieutenant Colonel James Wilson, retired. He pulled something from his pocket, a photograph faded and worn. "This is my family, my wife, my 3 kids, my 7 grandchildren." He held it out to her. "They exist because of you, all of them, because you came for me when no one else would." Sarah took the photograph with trembling hands. "I've carried this picture for 30 years, Wilson continued. "Every time I looked at it, I thought about the pilot who saved me, the pilot whose name I never knew." He stepped forward and embraced her. "Thank you, Major Mitchell. Thank you for my life. Thank you for my family. Thank you for everything." Sarah held him, this old soldier, this stranger who had carried her memory for 3 decades. "You're welcome," she whispered. "You're welcome." The crowd dispersed slowly. People lingered, talking, laughing, sharing stories. The parade ground transformed from a formal ceremony to something like a family reunion. Sarah stood at the edge watching it all. Derek found her there. "How you holding up?" I don't know what I am." Sarah shook her head. "I spent 3 years thinking no one cared, that I was just a ghost, a memory. And now you know the truth." Derek handed her a bottle of water. "You were never invisible, Mitch. You were just hiding. And people saw you anyway. People remembered." "How do I live with that? How do I carry all of this?" "The same way you've always carried it, one day at a time, one mission at a time." Derek paused. "The question isn't how you live with it. The question is what you do with it." Sarah looked at him. "Morrison offered to reinstate me." "I heard. You going to take it?" "I don't know. Part of me wants to fly again. Part of me is terrified of what happens if I do. Terrified of what crashing. Terrified of being her again. Ghost. The pilot who flew into fire without thinking. The woman who thought she was invincible." Sarah's voice dropped. "I'm not invincible, Derek. I proved that when I crashed. When I almost died, when I spent 6 months in a coma wondering if I'd ever wake up. Nobody's invincible. That's not the point. Then what is the point? Derek thought for a moment. The point is that you did it anyway. You knew you could die. You knew every mission might be your last, and you flew anyway. Because it mattered. Because people needed you. He put a hand on her shoulder. That's not invincibility, Mitch. That's courage. And courage isn't about not being afraid. It's about being afraid and doing the right thing anyway. Sarah absorbed his words. When did you get so wise? I've been working with you for 2 years. Had to learn something. She almost laughed. The afternoon faded into evening. The crowd thinned. The stories wound down. Sarah found herself standing alone near Gate 7, looking at the checkpoint where everything had started. A voice spoke behind her. Still here, I see. She turned. Captain Richard Hayes stood 10 feet away. He looked different, smaller. His uniform was wrinkled. His eyes were red. What do you want, Hayes? I wanted to. He stopped, started again. I wanted to say something before they transfer me out. Transfer you. Admiral Morrison's recommendation. Effective immediately. I'm being sent to a logistics post in Alaska. Basically the end of my career. He laughed bitterly. Funny, isn't it? I tried to destroy you and I ended up destroying myself. Sarah didn't respond. Hayes walked closer. I've been thinking about what you said. That day at the fence, about men like me who've never seen combat, never had to make decisions with lives on the line. He paused. You were right. I've spent my whole career in offices and briefing rooms playing politics, climbing ladders. I never understood what real service meant. And now I watched you run toward a truck that should have killed you. I watched you save a woman and a child without hesitating. I watched hundreds of people thank you for their lives. His voice cracked. And I realized something. I've been in the military for 15 years and I've never done anything that mattered. Not really, not the way you have. Sarah studied his face. The arrogance was gone. The condescension was gone. All that was left was a man who had finally seen himself clearly. What are you going to do about it? She asked. I don't know. I've never had to earn anything before. I've never had to start from scratch. He met her eyes. But I'm going to train a I'm going to go to Alaska and do my job, really do it for the first time. And maybe someday I'll deserve to wear this uniform. Sarah was quiet for a long moment. Hayes. Yeah, good luck. He blinked. That's it, after everything I did to you. You were a bully and an ass, but you're not evil. You're just broken. In a different way than me. As Sarah turned back to the gate. Go to Alaska. Learn what service means. Maybe we'll meet again someday. And if we do, then we'll see who you've become. Hayes nodded slowly. He started to walk away, then stopped. For what it's worth, Major Mitchell, I'm sorry for all of it. I know. He left. Sarah watched him go, feeling something she hadn't expected. Forgiveness. Not complete, not easy, but the first seeds of it taking root. The sun was setting when Vargas found her. Thought I'd find you here. Am I that predictable? You're a creature of habit. Even ghosts can't change that. He stood beside her, looking at the gate. I heard Hayes talk to you. News travels fast. It's a military base. Everyone knows everything. Vargas paused. You let him off easy. He's already punished himself worse than I ever could. Maybe. Vargas turned to face her. So, what now? Sarah took a deep breath. I've made a decision. About Morrison's offer. About everything. Vargas waited. I'm not going back to flying, Sarah said. Not full-time, my hand isn't reliable enough, and she paused. And I don't think that's who I'm supposed to be anymore. Then who are you supposed to be? Sarah looked at Gate 7, at the checkpoint where she had spent 2 years, at the place where everything had started. I'm going to stay here, not as a contractor. Morrison offered me a position as base security advisor, civilian role, but with authority to implement real changes. She turned to Vargas. I know it's not glamorous. It's not flying combat missions or saving lives in dramatic fashion, but it's service, real service, and it's something I can do. Vargas smiled. Sounds like you. What do you mean? I mean, you have always been about the mission, not the glory. About doing what needs to be done, not what gets attention. He put a hand on her shoulder. Gate 7 might not seem important to most people, but you and I know the truth. The gate is where it starts, where security starts, where safety starts. And having Ghost watching that gate, he nodded. That's worth more than 100 desk jockeys in fancy offices. Sarah felt something warm spread through her chest. Thank you, Vargas, for everything. Don't thank me, I'm just returning the favor. He started to walk away, then paused. Oh, and one more thing. The Night Stalker reunion is next month. Colorado Springs. I expect to see you there. I haven't been to a reunion in 3 years. I know, that's why I'm telling you now. So you have time to pack. He grinned. You can't hide from us anymore, Mitchell. We know where you live. He walked away whistling. Sarah watched him go, a smile tugging at her lips. Night fell over Coronado. Sarah stood at Gate 7, her post for 2 years, her home for the foreseeable future. Everything had changed. Everything was different. But some things remained the same. She was still watching, still protecting, still serving. And now finally she was doing it as herself. A car pulled up to the checkpoint. A young sailor barely out of boot camp handed over his credentials. "ID and purpose of visit, please." The sailor looked at her, his eyes widening. "You're her, aren't you, Ghost the pilot?" Sarah smiled. "I'm just a gate guard sailor, here to check your credentials. But I heard what you did. Everyone's talking about it. You're a legend." Sarah scanned his ID and handed it back. "Legends are just stories, kid. What matters is the work, the service, being there when people need you." She waved him through. "Welcome to Coronado. Have a good night." The sailor drove off, still staring at her in his rearview mirror. Sarah turned back to the gate. The night was quiet. The base was secure. The people she was responsible for were safe. And that was enough. That had always been enough. She heard footsteps behind her. Light footsteps. A child's footsteps. "Miss Sarah," she turned. Mateo stood there holding his father's hand. Behind them, Maria smiled. "Mateo wanted to say goodbye before we left," Maria said. "We're flying home tomorrow." Sarah knelt to Mateo's level. "Hey, buddy, how are you feeling?" "Good. My daddy says we're going to come back next year. He says you'll still be here." "I'll be here." Mateo pulled something from his pocket, a piece of paper folded into a messy square. "I made this for you at the hotel." Sarah unfolded it, a crayon drawing. A helicopter in the sky, a woman on the ground wearing blue. Around the edges in careful 6-year-old handwriting, the words, "Thank you for saving us." Sarah's eyes blurred. "This is beautiful, Mateo. The helicopter is you, from when you were a pilot, and the woman on the ground is you now." He pointed at the figure. "See, she's standing at the gate, keeping everyone safe." Sarah couldn't speak. She pulled Mateo into a hug, holding him tight. "Thank you, buddy. I'm going to keep this forever." "Promise, promise." Maria stepped forward, her own eyes wet. "Thank you, Sarah, for everything." David extended his hand. "If you ever need anything major, anything at all, you call me." Sarah shook his hand. "Take care of your family, petty officer. That's all the thanks I need." They walked away, the three of them together. Sarah watched them go, then she turned back to the gate. The night stretched ahead of her. Hours of checking IDs, hours of walking perimeters, hours of watching and waiting and protecting. It wasn't glamorous. It wasn't legendary. It wasn't the stuff of stories. But it was service. And service, Sarah had finally learned, was its own reward. She thought about everything that had happened. The conflict with Hayes, the hearing, the accident, the revelation, the medal, the reunion with people she had saved. She thought about the pilot she had been, the warrior she had become, the woman she was now. 3 versions of herself, 3 different lives, but one constant, the desire to protect, the need to serve, the refusal to stand by when others were in danger. That was who she was, who she had always been, who she would always be. Not Ghost, not Major Mitchell, not the legend, just Sarah. A woman who had given everything she had and discovered it was enough. The night deepened, the stars came out, and Sarah Mitchell stood her post watching over the men and women who depended on her. She had finally found her place. She was finally home. The gate was quiet. The base was secure, and somewhere in the darkness, a helicopter flew overhead, its rotors beating the air like a heartbeat. Sarah listened to the sound, her eyes lifted to the sky. She didn't flinch, didn't panic, didn't retreat into the darkness of her memories. She just listened and smiled, because the sound of rotors no longer meant fear. It meant family. It meant home. It meant that somewhere up there, another pilot was flying into the unknown, trusting their training, trusting their crew, trusting that the mission mattered, just like she had, all those years ago, all those lives saved. And now, standing at Gate 7, Sarah finally understood the truth she had been running from. She wasn't broken. She wasn't finished. She wasn't a ghost. She was a warrior, a protector, a servant, and her mission wasn't over. It was just beginning. The morning shift would come soon. New faces, new challenges, new opportunities to serve. But for now, in the quiet darkness before dawn, Sarah Mitchell stood her post, watching, waiting, ready, because that was what heroes did. Not the heroes in movies with their capes and their powers and their dramatic speeches. The real heroes, the quiet ones, the ones who showed up every day and did the work, the ones who stood between danger and the innocent, the ones who gave everything and asked for nothing. Those were the heroes who mattered. Those were the heroes who changed the world. And Sarah Mitchell, once ghost, once major, now simply a guardian at the gate, was one of them. She had always been one of them, and she always would be. True honor is not worn on a shoulder or demanded by a title. True honor is earned through courage, through sacrifice, through the quiet dignity of serving others when no one is watching. Never underestimate the person standing the watch. They may have walked through fire before you learn their name. They may carry scars you will never see, and they may be the reason you get to go home tonight. The silent warriors, the invisible heroes, the guardians who ask for nothing and give everything. They are the true backbone of this nation, and their stories, like the story of ghosts, deserve to be told, remembered, honored, forever.